Hello, everyone. Very good morning, good afternoon, depending on where you're joining us from. First things first, welcome to this ADManager Plus virtual meetup. Thank you very much for setting some time apart amidst your busy schedule and joining us for this session. This is going to be a 45-minute session in which we will be discussing about ADManager Plus. And of course, even if you're not a user of ADManager Plus, you'd still be able to take away action items from this session and hopefully put to use in your office, okay, for better managing your AD, Exchange, or Microsoft 365. So with me, I have Chris from Soft Solutions. So hello, Chris, good day. So Chris is based out of New Zealand, and he heads the the customer engagement team of Soft Solutions. And in case you have any questions for me or for Chris, please feel free to make use of the chat window and shoot out your questions. We'd be more than happy to answer them, right? So a quick disclaimer, just because we are working from the comfort of our homes, I did not want the bandwidth to, the video to be consuming much of the bandwidth. So what we're going to do now is we are going to cut the video feed and then move forward with the session. Okay, so after I cut the video feed, I'll be doing a quick audio video check just to make sure that everything is still good to go. So I kindly request you to let me know whether things are all good. Okay, so we're going to cut the field and we will proceed with the session. Right. Okay, I hope all of you are able to hear my voice and you're able to see the screen. So I kindly request you to make use of the chat box and then send me a couple of yeses if you can see the screen and hear me loud and clear. Right? Yes, yes. I'm just waiting for a few more yeses from the attendees. Thank you, Rebecca. Thank you, Phil. Thank you, Hemanta. Aaron, thank you so much. All right, Joseph, thank you so much. So we have a lot of confirmation. So I take that as a green signal and let's move forward without any delay. So my name is Vivin Satyan. I have been working as a technology consultant in the Active Directory team of AD Solutions for almost 9 years now. I take part in seminars and conferences and I talk to administrators. So with that little bit of experience in hand, what I've done here is I have now put together an ADManager Plus deck that will hopefully give you some action items to put to use, even if you're not a user of ADManager Plus, okay? All right, so let's get this started. The agenda is going to be pretty simple, so I didn't want to keep it long. So I will be first starting off with some important reports that I think that you should be generating as an Active Directory or Exchange or Microsoft 365 administrator. And then I thought, well, why not discuss about bringing in standardization, because Active Directory or Microsoft 365 as the technology platform has been around for quite some time. Now, what that means is you have too many people handling things inside of Active Directory and Office 365, right? So when you have too many people handling things, there are chances for data pollution. Now, what do I mean by data pollution is, for example, you have some important attributes left empty, old job roles, old titles, locations not being updated properly, and you would have permissions for 2 users belonging to the same department and same job role on different levels. So how do we bring in standardization to everything, right? Third is my favorite topic is how do you delegate tasks to other users in your infrastructure without delegating control or authority, right? And why should you be delegating tasks to other users? Well, we understand that Active Directory or Microsoft 365 management is not just about the administrators anymore. So we have your technicians, we have HR, you have your line managers getting involved in the process, let's say for modifying or for creating accounts and all that. So how are we going to delegate rights to them, but at the same time without delegating control or authority? Okay. And the last topic is automation. Okay. What are the common tasks that you think that you can automate? Let's say user onboarding, offboarding users, giving them access to sensitive information for, let's say, a specific time and then revoking the access after the specified time and all that. So we are going to be discussing just 4 important topics. And as I mentioned earlier, if you have any questions, please feel free to shoot them up. Okay. Now, even before jumping into the session, I'd like to take a few questions here in the sense, hasn't Microsoft already given us enough tools to manage the technology platforms like Exchange, Microsoft 365, Active Directory, Azure AD? The answer is yes. Microsoft has given us PowerShell. You have the Office 365 Admin Center. You have the age-old or the good old Active Directory users and computers, which all of you are familiar with. And if you're still using Skype, I hope not, because you have EOL for that, but you have a console for that, and then you have EMC. And to audit events like, let's say, who created a user, who deleted a user, who reset the password, or who unlocked the account, or who copied a file and all that, you have the event viewer, right? So you have all these tools given to us by Microsoft, but there is still a problem, or there are problems that, I wouldn't say problems, there are challenges that Microsoft has still or is still trying to figure out when it comes to hybrid Active Directory management, right? Can I ask you something? So to the attendees who are listening to or who have joined us today, how many of you are actually using a hybrid Active Directory setup? Let me make myself clear. So when I say hybrid Active Directory setup, I'm referring to your on-prem Active Directory, also your Microsoft 365 operating in a hybrid mode. Okay, so right, so okay, it looks like almost all of you are using a hybrid setup, right? So Phil, Rebecca, Aaron, and few others. So all of you say that you have a hybrid setup, which is good, because I have designed the session in such a way that it benefits administrators of not just the on-prem platform, but also the cloud platform as well. Okay. Now, the challenge that I see with some of these tools that I just showed you earlier is the confirmation messages that you get from these tools aren't very helpful. Let me give you an example here. So let's say you're doing a PowerShell script for creating a hybrid user, okay? And for some reason, the on-prem part was a success, but the Office 365 part failed for some reason, okay? The confirmation message that you get for the failure, especially for the cloud accounts, aren't very helpful. It tells you that the syntax is wrong, but it doesn't tell you what the right syntax is. It tells you that we have issues in line 13 of the script, but it doesn't tell you what exactly the error is and how to fix it. Okay. Of course, we'll have to seek for external help in order to troubleshoot the process. Now, the second challenge that I see is consolidating information, because I have interacted with administrators operating on a hybrid mode, okay, from different parts of the world. Now, one problem or one challenge that they feel is still present is consolidating information. So you have one user who has his or her digital identity in various technology platforms. The problem in consolidating information is not something that we can overlook. Okay, because when you actually try and generate a report, so you'll have to use, let's say, a console for Exchange, another console for 365, and another console for Active Directory. And if you have G Suite, yes, you have another console for that. And consolidating information is kind of a trick by itself. And the third challenge that I see is when you have multiple tools, the ability to delegate them to non-admin users becomes, a bit of a process, because the learning curve involved in adopting those tools and the time involved in the process is not something that you can overlook as an administrator. Now, we thought about this problem, so we wanted to give administrators something that will help them manage not just their on-prem platform, but also the cloud platform as well. And that is when almost 15 years ago, we introduced a tool called ADManager Plus in the market. And some of you might be users of this tool, some of you might be new to this tool, but in any case, welcome to ADManager Plus. Okay, so just to give you a quick introduction for those of you who are new to the application, ADManager Plus is one tool that can help you manage your on-prem as well as your Office 365 platform hybrid. And then it will also help you automate, delegate, and also implement a business workflow. So we'll be discussing about all these features from a use case standpoint. We're not just going to be talking about features. Of course, we'll be talking about features as well, but we're not going to be focusing 100% on the features. So it's more of a problem and how do you use the application to solve the problem. So that's the approach that I would like to take. Okay. And of course, we have some, a minor hacking experiment that I'd like to show in order to stress the importance of certain use cases. Okay. So please stay tuned. The first category that I'd like to discuss about is something related to reports. So when I say reports, of course, there are more than 200 reports that you can generate inside of ADManager Plus, but we do not have the time to squeeze in all those 200 use cases. But let me just talk about, let's say, a few, which I think is common for any administrator managing AD and Office 365. Okay. The first thing or the first question that I would like to ask you is, or tomorrow when you go back to office, the first question that I want you to ask you is how or who has access to your domain controllers? Because all of you said that you are managing a hybrid setup. What that means is you have your on-prem. Let's say you have it for like 10 years, 15 years, 5 years, it doesn't matter. You still have your on-prem and you also have your cloud setup. Okay. Whether we like it or not, your on-prem is still talking to your cloud setup and vice versa. Right. So it's really important for us to understand that the base or the security of our on-prem infrastructure is right, so that any communication that happens to and fro from your on-prem is safe and secure. Okay. Only when the on-prem is secure, it ensures the security of your cloud platform as well, especially when you're operating in a hybrid setup. Okay. I hope I make sense. So that's why I really believe that you should be knowing who has access to your domain controllers. Now, there are 6 groups in Active Directory that have access to domain controllers by default, and all of you know this. Enterprise admins, domain admins, administrators, backup operators, account operators, and print operators. So if you add me as a member of any one of these 6 groups, not necessarily the admin groups, but let's say the account operators group or print operators, I still get access to your domain controller. Okay, and then comes the concept of group nesting. Right. Now, what exactly is group nesting? Well, group nesting is pretty simple. It's a member being a member of something else, right? So you have a group and you have a member in that group, and that group is probably nested to another group. Okay. So that's what I refer to as group nesting. So let's say you have group A, and group A is a member of group B, and group B is, let's say, a low privilege group, and group A is a high privilege group. When you add a user to group B, in some form or the other, the permission gets drilled down to the other user as well. So that's why I really believe that we'll have to check for group nesting as well. Okay. Now, why should you even worry about who has access to your domain controllers? Is that really important? Of course, domain controllers is the core of your Active Directory, but is it that important? Well, in order to explain the importance of understanding, in order to explain the importance of who has access to your domain controllers or finding out who has access to your DCs, I would like to perform a small Active Directory hack experiment here. Okay, the hack is going to be pretty simple. What I'm trying to do is I have 2 targets for my hack experiment, assuming that you have added me to the account operators group, not necessarily the admins, but the account operators group. Okay, so what we're going to do now is, first thing is you have added me to the account operators group, and the account operators have access to domain controllers. Okay, and when you give them access to domain controllers, they get certain things by default, right? So what we're going to do now is I'm just going to quickly jump to my lab. So this is my lab. If you add me to the account operators group, I get access to a domain controller. That's the default design, right? And I also get access to command prompt. So what an insider can do with just a basic level access and access to a tool like command prompt, that's the whole thing. So I told you that we have 2 targets. Target number 1 is the Active Directory database itself. Okay. So if you log on to a domain controller and you go to C drive, Windows folder, the NTDS folder, and you go to ntds.dit. So here you see the Active Directory database. Now, what does this file have? Well, this has all your user information. This has password hashes of your users, and this has all the links that you want, okay, to initiate your attack chain. Okay, so this is the first target. And since this file is encrypted, you need something to decrypt, or you need something to unlock whatever is in there, whatever is in the file, right? So where is the key to unlock your Active Directory database? Well, the key is present in a different location, of course, in the same DC. So when you go to C drive, Windows System 32 config, you go to the system file. So this is where you find the keys, in simple terms, to unlock whatever is there in the ntds.dit file. Okay. Now, if you have access to, let's say, this folder, why not just copy the file? Okay. So, and try and paste it, let's say, on your desktop, and probably send it as an attachment to your email, right? So when you try to copy an active database, you know what happens, right? So you won't be able to do that because the file is still in use, and there is an operating system encryption, system level encryption on the file. No matter how many times you try, the file is still in use. So no luck. Okay. So there's one way you can do it. One way is by taking the server offline. But when you take a server offline, you will not be able to successfully complete the operation because the alarm goes off. When a server is down, the alarm goes off and the entire admin team is notified. You don't want that. So that's when you are going to be using a tool like Command Prompt. Of course, you can install tools like Bloodhound and few other tools out there to on your server and probably try and extract the files. But when you install a software, there is a huge digital footprint that you leave behind. Okay, and the chances of you getting exposed is really, really high. So what we can do on the other hand is, okay, now I'm just doing this experiment to let you know the importance of finding out who has access to your domain controllers, okay, and nothing else. So what you can do on the other hand is, if you have access to a domain controller, you can probably use VSS admin. Okay, now this is a command line tool that will help you take a copy of any volume that you want, be it C drive, D drive, E drive, whatever. Okay, so we have various commands that are supported inside of VSS admin, and one command that we're going to use is create shadow. Now, what does this do? Well, it creates a new volume shadow copy of any volume that you want. So we're going to try and copy the C drive first, and then the two files. So VSS admin, okay, create shadow for the entire C drive. Oops. Right. So what we've done now is we have successfully created the shadow copy for the entire C drive, and both our targets are inside the C drive folder. Okay, so now we're going to copy another file. So copy, right? So we are working with a shadow copy here, so there's no point in typing C colon. I'll have to replace C colon with a shadow copy volume name of C colon. So I'm just going to mark, okay. Right, so C colon, Windows, entities folder, and then it's the entities.dit file. Now, where do you want the file to be copied? Well, let's try and paste this on my desktop. Okay, so C colon, users, Vivin -1438, and then you have the desktop. Okay, so when you hit enter, you will see the Active Directory database getting pasted somewhere here. So I just want you to watch this space for a quick second, okay? All right, it says one file copied, and you have the Active Directory database getting pasted here. Okay. Now I can repeat the same experiment and copy the second file, which is the system file, which is present in a different location, right? All I need to do is just change the location, execute the command, and I have the system file getting pasted here. Now, with these two files, you can very well crack almost all the user credentials that are there in this file. Okay, so this is a three-step process. Step one is actually copying these files. Step two is extraction, which is extracting whatever is there in the entities.dit file using the system file. And step three is cracking the password hashes, because at the end of the day, all you need is usernames and passwords, right, to successfully initiate the attack. So I'm going to skip step number 2 because that's not the whole idea here. I've already done that. I've already done the extraction part. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to jump right into step number 3. And step number 3 is extracting or cracking the user credentials. Okay, let's try and crack some user credentials here. Now, after you extract the password hashes from the ntds.dit file, the hashes would look something like this, right? So we are right now in step number 3. So I've already done the extraction to save time. So you have the password hashes here. These are not actual passwords, but the hashes. So in order to crack these hashes, of course, you can copy the hashes by, after copying these hashes, you can work with any free password hash cracker out there in the net. Okay, you need not even install the software. So I'm going to be using crackstation.net. So what I do here is, okay, let me just close this. So Crackstation is the one that I work with. So if you want, you can just paste it and confirm that I'm not a robot, right? And when I hit crack hashes, okay, you will be able to see the passwords getting, the hashes getting cracked here. So let's try and do this. Crack hashes, and they have the password. Okay. The idea is pretty simple. So you have the hash, you have the algorithm that was used for hashing, and you also have the user passwords here. Now, this is a lab setup, so that's why you see some weird passwords here. So excuse my password strength. Okay. So, but the point that I'm trying to drive is, if you give me access to a domain controller, you also give me access to command prompt, right? So when I have access to a domain controller and command prompt, it's just a matter of 10 minutes before I take over complete control over your users and their credentials. Okay. Now, once I have the username and passwords of, let's say, 15 users or 20 users in your Active Directory, I can very well initiate my attack kill chain, right? So that is why I really believe that you should be doing this report first, understanding who has access to your domain controllers, or in other words, how many administrators do we really have, okay? And how does AD Manager Plus help you? Well, AD Manager Plus has, this is AD Manager Plus, right? So let me actually take you to the reporting section and probably do the report that I was supposed to show you. So in the reporting section, you will be able to see that we have close to 200 reports here, all categorized. So you have the categorization on the left. Okay, that includes report for Office 365 too, right? And also some G Suite reports and compliance reports as well. So if you have a certain compliance requirement and you want to do a report on that, yes, we give you compliance reports as well. All right, so now let's stick to our topic here, understanding who has access to domain controllers, for which I go to the group reports section and I do the detailed group members, okay, the second report. Now I can select all the 6 groups that I mentioned in my deck and then generate the report. Just for the sake of this session, I have selected just the domain admins here. And I would like to know the nested members of domain admins. Okay, if you'd like to exclude domain admins, I'm sorry, the nesting, you can just go ahead and select the checkbox here, but that's not the idea. You would like to understand nesting, right? Especially when it's a high privilege group. And you would want to fetch all kinds of objects that have contact to your domain admins, users, groups, computers, and contacts. Okay, that's exactly what we've done here in this report. If you take a look at this report, it says that I have 12 users that are part of domain admins. Okay, but what I'm more concerned about is, are there any groups that have contact with domain admins? And if there are any groups, are these groups basic groups or high privilege groups? Okay, so when you go to the groups section, this is where you understand the group nesting, right? So it says that you have the intern basic access group and the VPN access group are unfortunately linked to domain admins. Okay, this is a mistake. This is a terrible mistake, but this has happened. But how do you understand that this has happened is, only when you have the concept of group nesting in place. Okay. So this is why I really suggest, this is why I really believe that you should be doing this as the first report. Even if you're using PowerShell, that's perfectly fine. Please see whether you can, do this report on, let's say, on a weekly basis, or let's say once in every 2 weeks. Okay, so this is what I would suggest. The first report is the detailed group members report. And I hope I have made my point clear. So why you should be doing this report? Because it's really important, because people, when they log on to domain controllers, they can do n number of things, and some of those things can really go under the radar, and you don't want that, okay? Especially when you're operating in a hybrid setup. All right, so we have now successfully completed a small hack experiment without installing a software or without getting detected. And we cracked the accounts offline. We did not do it online. We cracked it offline, in the sense outside your corporate network. Okay. All right, now let's jump to the second topic. The first was all about reporting. The second topic that I'd like to discuss about is effectual management of objects in a hybrid Active Directory, right? Now, as I mentioned during the start of my session, when you have Active Directory as a technology platform for, let's say, years together, you have some challenges. Okay, and those challenges are manual entries. Okay, you have too many people working on projects, you have too many people handling things, onboarding users. So there are lots of manual entries. You have null values, inappropriate values, job titles not being updated, old locations haven't been removed. So what happens is, as a consequence of all these, business application integrations becomes a bit tricky. When you want to integrate, let's say, your IT service management tool, or your SIEM solution with, let's say, your Active Directory and Office 365 management tool, the integration becomes a bit tricky when you do not have the right attributes updated properly. Okay, so the solution to this problem is you'll have to have a process of standardization while provisioning accounts. You'll also have to understand your existing structure and then think about standardization as well, not just while creating. If you have already created hundreds and thousands of accounts, how are you going to bring in standardization while modifying the accounts without actually disturbing the accounts? Okay, so ADManager Plus, on the other end, also helps you achieve the standardization, not just in the onboarding phase, but also all throughout the object lifecycle: creation, modification, and deletion. And there are two ways of doing it. There is a manual way of doing it. You can also automate the process of bringing in standardization, right? So let me actually discuss how ADManager Plus helps you bring in standardization at the time of onboarding users. However, you can apply the same concept while you modify or you delete users as well, right? And the tool or the method by which we help administrators bring in standardization is by using something called templates, right? Now, templates are really, really useful when it comes to provisioning accounts. And at the same time, if you already have thousands of accounts provisioned in your office or in your infrastructure, and you want to bring in standardization, you can still use a template. Okay, I'm going to explain just 3 important features and then let you play with the tool. Okay, so let me quickly jump to my lab setup in order to explain those 3 features. Now, when you go to the management tab, you have something called user templates here. And you might be wondering, well, is there a template just for the users? What about computers? What about groups? And what about other objects? Well, we have templates for creation and modification, not just for users, but also for other objects as well. We have templates for computers, templates for groups, contacts, even mailboxes. Okay, I hope some of you are still using Exchange. Any fans of Exchange still present in our session? Okay, I see a couple of yeses, which is good. Okay, it makes me happy. Okay, so if you have Exchange and you have, let's say you want to manage your mailboxes, we still have templates for all that. Okay, all right. Now, I told you that I'm going to be talking about just 3 important features, and the 3 features are common for almost all the templates that you see here. Okay, I go to the user creation template section here. I've already created a template so that it'll be much more easier for me to actually show you the usefulness of the template. Okay, so when you open up the template section, you have something called the template list here. So I have 8 templates. However, you can create any number of templates that you want, okay? And you can modify them in bulk. Let's say you have 100 templates, okay? And you want to modify 2 attributes in all those 100 templates. You'll be able to modify templates in bulk as well. Okay, so that's one thing that I would wanted to show you. And when you actually open up a template, I've already created one for you. You see that there are 3 core features, okay? And these are my favorites. And these are the features that make that makes the template actually useful, okay? So the first feature that I'd like to show you is the enable drag and drop feature, okay? Now, you might have observed something by now that when you actually open up, or when I actually open up the layout here, there are certain fields that are highlighted, but there are certain other fields that are grayed out. You might have already observed this, right? So for instance, out of all the tabs that you have in this layout, only the general tab is highlighted. And inside the general tab, even though you have, let's say, so many attributes, only the first name, last name, and the title attribute is highlighted. The rest is grayed out, right? So the logon name is grayed out, the full name is grayed out. Why is that? Why is that? Well, the answer to that is this template is for the HR, and I don't want the HR user to be able to see any other value in this layout except for these 3 attributes, except for first name, last name, and title. Now you might ask me, hey, can the HR create a user in Active Directory, in Office 365, in Exchange, create a remote mailbox, create links, Skype for Business, or whatever? Can the HR do all this just by filling these 3 values? Well, the answer is yes. Okay. Now, what I'm going to do now is I am going to actually use this template, the same template. Okay. I just want you to note down the name of the template here. It's user creation -HR. I'm going to use this template. Okay. And I'm going to map this template to this HR user that you see on the screen. Okay. So I have a user called HR, and the HR, just to let you know, is just part of domain users. Okay. Now we are going to witness 2 things here. Now we are going to witness this HR creating a complete account for me in Office 365, in Exchange, in AD, with all the properties that you want, just by filling these 3 fields. And I'll then come back to the template because it's really important for us to understand template, okay? Because when you delegate a template to a user, you're just delegating a task. You're not delegating control or authority. You don't want that, right? We are touching on another concept as well here, non-intrusive delegation, okay? So first, let me create a user by using this template. I have now logged in as the admin. I'm going to sign out, right? And I'm now going to log in as the HR. And let's try and create a user here. So HR, I type the Windows credential of the HR. Now, please note that this is not an application authentication. This is a domain authentication. So which means these are the credentials of the HR, the Windows credentials, okay? So I log in. Now, when I log in as the HR, you might see that there's a world of a difference in the user interface, okay? So as a HR, I don't have access to any other tabs other than the management tab. And inside the management tab, I do not have access to any other actions except for creating an account, okay? Now, when I go to create an account, now I just showed you the template. The template had at least 8 different tabs, and every tab had at least 10 different fields, right? But the user creation -HR template, when it is mapped to the HR, it just has the first name, last name, and the title field. You can also see that the title field is mandatory here. Okay. Now let's see. Well, now what I'm trying to achieve now is I want this HR to be able to create a fully loaded account in my New Zealand OU. Okay. So this is my Active Directory. And this is the New Zealand OU here. And I have no users in this OU as of now. So the HR is now going to onboard, let's say, a user. Okay, onboard 2 users, in fact. So let's call the first user Chris, and the name of the user is admin. Okay, so I'm onboarding an admin user. So as a HR, I just type the first name and the last name of the user, and the title of this user. I'm recruiting this user to be an IT admin. So I just select the title to be IT admin, and I hit create. Okay. Now it says successfully created the user, and the user is created in the New Zealand OU. Okay. Now let's try to create another account, a tech account, not necessarily admin. Of course, using the same template, right? So Chris, and then tech. Okay. And the title now is going to be IT technician. Of course, you can choose from other titles as well, marketing manager, network and systems, QA engineer. But now I'm going to select the title as IT technician, right? And then hit create. So it says, please wait. And it also says successfully created the user. Okay. Now I'm going to Active Directory. I'm going to the New Zealand OU right here. And let me do a quick refresh to see whether the accounts are created. Okay. So I have Chris admin and I have Chris tech. I use the same template and I just typed in 3 fields. Okay. Let's verify the properties of these users. So I open up Chris admin and I see that I have all the properties of Chris populated. The office is Auckland, the phone number updated. And if I go to the group membership tab, everything is updated. And if I open up Office 365, I already have an account for Chris there with the right license. Okay. Now this is an admin account. What about the tech account that I used to create using the same template? If I open up the tech account, well, the office and the other properties are populated. The address and everything is populated here. But when I go to the group membership part here, I have group membership relevant only to the tech role, not the admin role. Okay. Now this is the magic of the template. Now one template can help you onboard users across multiple departments and across multiple job roles. Okay, you might be wondering, how is this even possible, or what is the logic behind this? Well, I'd like to explain the logic to you now, because you have witnessed in real time what the template can do. Okay, now the first feature was all about hiding certain fields, enabling certain fields, and all that. The second feature is about bringing in or keying in logic. Okay, so I'll explain the logic to you in a short while. So if you have any questions for me so far, please feel free to make use of the chat box and let me know. I'd be more than happy to take your questions. Okay. Of course, I see that we have a few questions that are unanswered, but I'll definitely get back to you with the answers for the questions. Now, when you open up a template, the first feature is enable drag and drop. Okay. I told you that enable drag and drop helps you customize this layout. It helps you add, remove, edit, delete, or make silently active and all that. Okay. So this is for customization, the enable drag and drop. Now, creation rules is where you key in such smart logics. Okay. So let me explain the logic here. Of course, you can add any number of rules as you want. Okay. You can have 10 rules, 20 rules, 50 rules per template. Okay. But I've just included 3, one for IT admin, one for IT technician, and the other one for server administrator. So every rule that you expand works based on a condition. And the condition is pretty simple, right? So rule number 1, the condition is the title is IT admin. If the title is IT admin for the newly recruited employee, I want certain values to be assigned automatically based on the user's job title. Okay, what if it's a technician? If it's a technician, right, if the title is IT technician, that I want certain values to be auto-populated because the value is IT technician now, right? So this is how you can onboard users across multiple departments and multiple job roles. And of course, something similar to creation rules is you have something called modification rules. Okay, if you'd like to modify, let's say 500 users in one shot, you want to update, let's say 2 or 3 attributes for their account based on some logics. You can key in logics for user modification as well, and then use them in the template, right? So while creating users, I already showed you that the HR, okay, let me show you the HR properties again. The HR was not part of any fancy groups, okay, just domain users. And you very well know that domain users cannot create users, but the HR was still able to create 2 accounts, the admin account and the tech account, right? How did this happen? How was this even possible? Well, that's when the delegation part comes into picture. You can now see that I've already added HR as a part of ADManager Plus. I have not given HR direct access to my servers or any Microsoft tools. I've just added the HR as a technician, and I've mapped a role of user creation to the HR. That's it, okay? This is what I am referring to as non-intrusive delegation. You can, if you are managing multiple domains, you can give them access to any number of domains. You can restrict them to certain organizational units. You can map any role that you deem fit, okay? It can be a role even of a super admin, okay? Or you can have your own roles created. And if it's for user onboarding, you can even assign templates here, okay? So this is exactly what I'm referring to as non-intrusive delegation, okay? Give them any role that you want. So you can even create your own role. So when you go to create a role, it's all about, you know, having actions here, it's all about enabling the check boxes that you want. A role has close to 200 check boxes that you can select and then assign to your users. That includes Office 365 administration as well, right? So you can create your own role, map it to your technicians, and at the same time, you can also audit the actions done to you, the actions performed by the technicians as well. So this is the second concept that I would like to explain. So we also have an auditing profile here. So if you notice that the tool has already captured the HR's action here. The HR has tried creating a couple of accounts and the action was a success. You have Chris Tech, Chris Admin, tax system and all that. And if you want to know the details of the account, you just hit details and you get to know about the complete information pertaining to the user that was created, right? So this is feature number 2 pertaining to management. How do you bring in standardization at the time of creation and also at the time of modifying users? Okay, I hope I have made my point clear. Added to that, you also have lots of other interesting features like GPO management and file server management in the tool that will help you manage permissions on NTFS and shares that you have, NTFS folders and shares that you have in your infrastructure. Okay, adding and removing permissions in bulk. If you have a confidential folder and you want, let's say, to add 5 entries and remove the existing 1,000 entries that are there on the folder, you'll be able to do that in one shot using the file server management section. Okay, this is for administrators who manage NTFS and share permissions. Okay, so just thought of letting you know that. All right, so we've discussed about reports. Of course, not all the reports. One, we've discussed about management, especially user creation and modification. And we've also touched upon the concept of delegation as well. Okay, so how do you add a user and not give them access to servers or not give them access to native tools? Okay, so the HR will only be able to perform the creation process when logged into ADManager Plus. Okay, if I disable the account right here, the access is disabled, the HR will not be able to access ADManager Plus anymore and create accounts or manage or whatever it is. Okay, I hope I've made my point clear. And the next feature, just 5 more minutes and we're done. Excuse me. The next feature that I get asked most of the time is, can AD Manager Plus interact with other business applications? The answer is yes. AD Manager Plus can operate standalone, or it can handshake with a variety of applications that you have in your infrastructure. Okay? It can integrate with IT service management tools like Service Desk, ServiceNow, Zendesk, Bamboo HR. It can also integrate with databases, MySQL, Oracle databases. It can also forward important events to maybe syslog, or if you have Splunk or other SIEM tools out there, you want some crucial actions to be forwarded to your centralized log repository. Yes, we can do that as well, right? Now, this is how the service desk screen looks like after you integrate it with AD Manager Plus. Okay, you might have noticed, for the users of Service Desk, you might have realized by now that your Service Desk console gets additional management operations after integration, okay? So that your technicians can perform these operations right from the Service Desk console. Even though AD Manager Plus is operating in the backend, your technicians need not log into multiple tools to manage or to manage your AD or Office 365. Some basic options or some common operations are listed right here, okay? On the other hand, if you're using ServiceNow, your ServiceNow console would change to adapt the concept of AD and Office 365 modification. You will have additional options getting added here, okay? And I already told you that apart from the regular business application integrations, we would even be able to forward important actions to your centralized log repository, okay? So let's say we have a user Ron, and Ron tries to delete a user, okay, via the application. AD Manager Plus captures the action, okay, and then forwards the log to your syslog, okay, forwards the log as a syslog to your centralized log repository or SIM solution, okay, and you have a notification saying unauthorized Active Directory management action by Ron, okay. So you'd be able to understand such elevation of privileges as well that takes place via AD Manager Plus or otherwise after the integration, right? Now, so far we've discussed about multiple things, and one topic that I would like to touch upon, or in fact the last topic for the session, is automation, right? Now, all of us like automation for some reason, and all of us hate automation for some obvious reasons, okay? I hope the administrators listening to this session can relate with me when I say we hate automation, okay? The administrators who actually hate automation hate it for the reason that they do not have enough control over a task that they wish to automate. Sometimes, not always, but sometimes, okay? So that is why I really believe that any automation that you schedule has to have an option to be controlled, or in other words, it should have a workflow integration. And AD Manager Plus already has that workflow integration built in, okay? Now, what you're seeing on the screen right now is, according to me, automation in theory, right? Automation in theory is flawless. You wanted to do something, it does exactly that, and your productivity is improved. But we as administrators know what automation could be in reality, okay? So that is why I really believe that any automation that you schedule should have a workflow integration, or in simple terms, it should have a request and approve methodology. And AD Manager Plus helps you achieve just that, right? Now, you can think about automating the process of user onboarding across technology platforms, or you can also think about offboarding users. When the employees leave the organization, you might want steps 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 to be performed across technology platforms. Yes, the automation module can help you do all that, okay? It can also help you create your own logic. AD Manager Plus can help you create your own logic. So you want actions 1, 2, and 3 to be done soon after the user account is created, or you want actions 5, 6, and 7 to be done soon after the account is deleted, yes, we'll be able to do all that. You can key in your own logic. But the point that I'm trying to drive is not that. Okay? The point that I'm trying to drive home is any automation that you create, you should have the ability to supervise and then execute automations. Okay? So, for example, you go to the automation tab here and you create a new automation. Okay? And this automation can be for anything. Let's say you're trying to remove Office 365 licenses from, let's say, disabled or deleted users. Okay, so disable and delete is a crucial operation. Okay, so you select the report, and the report is going to be, let's say, disabled users. Okay, let's try and select the disabled users here. So I've selected disabled users. I've added the condition. Okay, let's say the logon time or let's say the when change time is before, or let's say it's yesterday. Okay, so I just go ahead and schedule this automation, and I want the automation to remove Office 365 licenses from the disabled users. Okay, and I want this to happen, let's say, on a weekly basis, not necessarily on Sunday. Let's say on Mondays at 10 o'clock, okay, or at 10:25. Now, when I schedule this automation, what happens is every Monday morning at 10:25, ADManager Plus would run this disabled users report, and it would remove their Office 365 licenses. Okay, but what if a user has gone on leave and the user is back in office now, and the automation is now going to disable their license or remove their Office 365 license? Now, this is why I really believe that you should have an option to control an automation. Okay, you as an administrator should be able to say yes or no to an action, even though it is automated. Okay, that's when you enable the checkbox called Implement Business Workflow. Now, this workflow is directly linked to the Workflow tab right here. Workflow is nothing but a multi-level approval mechanism. So you have a requester and you have multi-levels of approval. Only when all the users belonging to these roles say yes to an automation, the automation will take place. If you feel that these many levels are not required, I'd like to keep it simple, well, you can keep it simple. Okay, so automate, yes, you can automate anything that you think is kind of routine. Okay, be it user, computer, group, or contact automation. You can pick and choose your tasks here. We have a variety of tasks that you can pick and choose from. You can also create your own logic by going to the automation policy. So no matter what, be it a custom task or a default task, I want you to think about the workflow concept here. For crucial actions like disable and delete, please implement a business workflow, because there are chances for an automation to disable the wrong users. Okay, so we don't want that to happen. All right, so the topic that we discussed so far, we really kept this session simple. We didn't dive deep into ADManager Plus. So we discussed about reports, how do we bring in standardization, automating the process by implementing a business workflow, and at the same time, we also discussed about delegation in a non-intrusive manner. Okay, so that's pretty much about it pertaining to the session. Now, you might be wondering, well, you talked about user lifecycle management and all that. Is that it? Well, ADManager Plus is an application that could help you manage your AD, your on-prem, as well as your cloud Active Directory platform. But ADManager Plus is just one module of a larger identity and access management suite called AD360. Okay, so if at all you're interested in knowing more about AD360 or ADManager, or if you're already using ADManager Plus, you would want to know more use cases, you would want to know more detailed videos, please feel free to drop a message now. I'd be more than happy to share some free resources with you that could help you better manage your Office 365 AD and Exchange, and at the same time, more information is related to AD360. Okay, so thank you very much for your time and patience. Of course, we have time for question and answers. I think Chris has already answered some of your questions, and we'll also be answering some of the questions live. So I'm going to spend the next few minutes to answer some of your questions. So please feel free to shoot out your questions. I'd be more than happy to answer. And in the meantime, we have just 2 polls that we request you to take at the now. So by now you should be seeing a poll on your screen. So it's just going to take a couple of seconds. One is to know your interest, and the second one is to know what was the outcome of this session, right? So we request you to spend a few minutes or a few seconds and answer the polls as well. In the meantime, let me take a few questions that we already have, right? Okay. All right, so Aaron wanted me to demonstrate how to create Exchange Online shared mailbox from AD Manager, if that's possible. Well, yes, Aaron, we'll be able to do that, but just because we're pressed for time, I'm not going to be demonstrating now, because as you can see that I'm clearly working from a lab setup and I don't have too many things configured. But Aaron, I will definitely get back to you with the necessary resources that would help you better understand the exchange management capabilities of AD Manager Plus, right? So yes, that is possible, Aaron. So right, okay. And the other question that I got just now is, yes, just wondering if you could present creating a user that syncs to Exchange Online with Office 365. Of course, the same question again. The test lab is not exactly hybrid. That's why I'm not able to show you a demo now. But yes, we'll be able to create accounts in both your on-prem as well as your Office 365 and then map the right licenses. Okay. Right there. I have a question from Phil. And okay. Phil says, well, you have templates working better than us. We need to do some work. Happy to work with you, Phil. So if at all you need some help, you have Chris, you have me. So you have my email address on the screen. You also have Chris to contact. So please reach out. We'd be more than happy to set up a few templates, which is not going to take more than 30 minutes of your time. And then you can get the ball rolling. Okay.
Vivin, right. Within one more update, I would like to share it in the forum, because this is quite common across our customers. In general, when we are using a template on, it's good to keep a user creation template as simple as it can be, so that the sync varies from environment to environment. I've noticed it takes anywhere from 15 minutes to 30 minutes or more than an hour in certain environments. So if mostly that happens in the hybrid setup. So I would highly recommend to keep your user creation templates as simple as it can be with attributes, and then do the rest of modifications using modification templates and modification rules. In that way, the object will be available in both the setup. So it will be easier to manage it with modification templates over creation templates.
Absolutely. Thank you for stepping in, Chris. And I hope at least some of the attendees found that informative. So yes, I think we have a few questions, but I really believe that we need some detailed answers for those questions. So I think we can take them offline. So I'm not going to hold you any longer. I really believe that you found the sessions informative. And just to let you know, for users of AD Manager Plus, we also have AD Manager Plus workshops. I mean, free online workshops happening on a regular basis. Okay. Now, if you are interested in signing up for those workshops in order to understand or better use the application, to know the technicalities involved in it, so please feel free to let us know, and we'd be able to share the link as well. Okay, so you can watch it at your convenience. Okay, so I understand that we are still going through the lockdown phase. So I hope we come out of this happier, even more successful. So thank you very much once again for your time and patience. I really believe that you were able to take away at least some action items from the session. So until next time, it's me, Vivin Satyan, saying goodbye to you. Thank you very much, Chris, for your participation. So for the entire team in Soft Solutions and for the attendees who have logged in case you need any help, we are always there. Thank you very much. All of you have a wonderful evening.